Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watch You Want, and thanks for logging on. Today we are looking at a Rolex Oyster Perpetual Submariner, reference 16610. You can see this L series, or roughly 1990 vintage Rolex Submariner on our website, watchyouwant.com. Purchase it there if you like. And if you enjoy these videos, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Watch You Want Inc. You can see on my wrist, 6 1/3 inches, 16 centimeters in circumference. This watch is a remarkable cross between elements we consider to be integral to the modern Submariner and features that we generally associate with vintage watches. Now, it is wonderfully compact. The watch is 13 millimeters thick, but with a sloped bezel and a slightly domed crystal, it easily slides under a dress cuff. Its size is anything but obtrusive, and since it does feature vintage-style hollow end links, the absolute extremities of the case are defined by the lugs, not the end links. So, 47.5 millimeters from lug to lug. This is an easy watch to wear comfortably on a smaller wrist. Rolex's 40 millimeter nominal measurement hasn't changed, but anyone who's familiar with the modern 6-digit reference super cases can already see we're talking about a different animal. This is your dad's and your grandpa's Rolex, and believe for it. It's a fantastic piece. Enhanced by the feel and the look of a vintage timepiece, it has the light, easy-wearing wieldiness of a vintage Rolex bracelet, this being the 93150. Hollow end links, hollow center links, and a stamped clasp. It has a comfort, a lightness, and a vintage charm to it that is entirely absent in the modern milled-out clasps, milled-out bracelets. Those feel like Brinks trucks. This feels more like an old Triumph TR4. It's lightweight, but charming for it. Now, the clamshell keeps it secure, and despite being a vintage piece, it's not a decontented piece. Featuring a fold-out dive extension, this one remains crisp, such that when it pulls out with authority, and when it's closed, it closes with security. It's still just as useful for fitment over a dive suit, but it's also handy if you want to wear the watch over a thick winter sweater or coat. And I found on watches with dive extensions, that is more often than not how I find myself using them. Now, aside from the vintage style and beautifully preserved Rolex bracelet, you can see the Oyster has barely stretched, and I'm applying pressure to it to demonstrate the play in the bracelet. This one has aged gracefully, and so has the dial and the bezel. The combination of dial and bezel really mark this watch as a product of its period. Now, L series is approximately 1990, more than enough for the 12.5-year half-life of tritium to fade this one twice over. And you can see to good effect the even patina between the bezel pearl, the hands at center, and the applied white gold indices with their tritium dots of lume. Now, that's the nice thing. When I say this watch sort of straddles the line between modern and vintage, you do get that gorgeous, authentic tritium patina, the fade of the luminescent material, but you also get the more upscale gloss dial finish and the applied white gold indices, as well as hands of the later 1980s Rolex Submariners. So this one really does cut the image of a modern watch in details. It's the elements that are specific to the period that mark it as a vintage timepiece. And because it does feature the Rolex 3135 movement, from a mechanical standpoint, you have just about all the refinements that you'd expect of a modern Rolex. You give up very little by wearing this vintage piece. You still have 300-meter water resistance. You still have a 45 to 48-hour power reserve. You still have a full balance bridge with a free-sprung balance and a handmade Breguet overcoil hairspring. You still have a 4 Hz beat rate. You still have the Rolex Teflon-coated bidirectional winding system winding wheels, reversing such that even when you shake the watch on your hand, you really can't feel the rattle and you can't hear the winder. It is a COSC certified Swiss chronometer, and when you pull the crown, you do stop the balance, hack the seconds, for precise synchronization to a known accurate reference clock. Moreover, it does feature a quick set feature for the date. With a sapphire crystal, this really is a no-compromise vintage watch that you can wear as your daily watch. It's as tough as a modern Rolex with all the same mechanical and durability refinements, albeit with those elements of age that bring us to revere and adore vintage watches, patina, vintage-style bracelets, and the compact dimensions of the 5-digit Rolex Submariner case. You can see this neo-vintage Rolex Submariner 16610 L series on our website, watchyouwant.com.